about to this particular part that we install the hypervisor to make the scenario as the virtualized scenario hypervisor. Now this supports various guest OS operating system, guest operating system like this, right? So the type 1 hypervisors are the native hypervisors run directly on the host hardware. This is the host hardware that we install this hypervisor. This is the framework software, okay, layer, software layer it is. And under this type 1 hypervisor, the guest operating systems work directly run on the host hardware. This is the one. Now if you come back to the second type of design, hyper design type 2, so there is a simple difference, like the hardware is completely here this is the hardware, right? And above to the hardware layer, host operating system is installed here. Host operating system, this is the second layer. Then after this, we will try to install the hypervisor as a third layer, right? And now this hypervisor made the other guest operating systems to work on specific applications like this. So this is the difference between hypervisor type 2 and this is type 1. Type 2. So what it tells, type 2 hypervisors are hosted hypervisors run on top of a conventional host operating system, okay, and monitor the guest operating systems. So what exactly the guest operating system mean? Yeah, the guest operating system is, I'm writing here, the guest operating system is an operating system that is installed in a virtual machine in addition to the host or main operating system. So here, see, the host operating system is already being installed. Then this particular guest operating system is for only meant for virtual machines, and which is installed or maintaining on the layer of on the layer or after the layer of hypervisor. So the hypervisor makes the environment as virtualized environment. So till this part that we cannot assume this particular environment is virtualized environment. No. Here till this part, this is completely running. This is completely running independently as a traditional operating system, right? So the guest OS requires no modification and is not aware that is being virtualized. That is being virtualized. So in virtualization, the guest operating system can be different from the host operating system. So various forms of virtualization approaches exist, right? I'll discuss. Among these, the first one is the full virtualization. Full virtualization. In full virtualization, the virtualization layer completely decouples. Okay, in full virtualization, the virtualization layer completely decouples the guest operating system from the underlying hardware. This one completely decouples the guest operating system from the underlying hardware, right? The guest OS requires no modification here again, and is not aware that it is being virtualized. So full virtualization is enabled by direct execution of user requests. I'm repeating this point again. Full virtualization is enabled by direct execution of user requests and a concept called, the full virtualization uses a concept called binary translation. Binary translation. Binary translation. This is the one. Okay. So I'll discuss the concept of the full virtualization here itself, how it works. Simple, right? And the name of this particular full virtualization, the concept is being framed like this, my dear. So this is the full virtualization concept, where, as usual, here the bottom layer has been considered as the system hardware. Okay, this is the system hardware. Now, here instead of virtualization, that instead of hypervisor, what we do, we arrange the virtual machine monitor framework, right? Framework, and as a third layer, right, we install unmodified guest operating system. Unmodified guest operating system. This is the third one. And finally, as a top layer, that we use this as user applications. User applications in this way. So this is called full virtualization. Okay. So let me repeat the point that in full virtualization, the virtualization layer is completely decouples. Virtualization layer completely decouples the guest operating system from the underlying hardware. This one. So this VMM layer makes the formation of decoupling, right, from this particular system hardware. So the guest OS requires no modification, and it is not aware that it is being virtualized. That's it. Simple. This is the way. Now, if you consider the second part of virtualization, that is the other part, that is called para-virtualization. Para-virtualization. I'm taking attendance, I'm taking screenshots, and it is observed that mostly the BTech CSC students are not attending the classes. Anyways, I'll take the response accordingly. We'll see. Yeah. So para-virtualization. Simple. That let me illustrate with the pictorial representation. Then after that, I'll come back. So in the para-virtualization, see how it works. As usual, this is the system hardware layer. Okay. Now, again, that we try to install the virtual machine monitor as a virtualized layer. Okay. Now, here in the full virtualization, the guest operating system is installed as an unmodified, but here we do as modified guest operating system. So guest operating systems can be modified in para-virtualization. So modified guest operating systems. And finally, as an upper layer, that we use it as user applications. User applications. This is the way. So in para-virtualization, the guest operating system is modified to enable communication with the hypervisor to improve performance and efficiency. To improve the performance and efficiency. So what kind of hypervisor we have used here? That virtual machine monitor. Here also virtual machine monitor, right? So the guest operating system kernel, accordingly here, the guest operating system kernel is modified to replace non-virtualizable instructions with hypercalls from the hypervisor like VMM that communicate directly with the virtualization hypervisor. So in this way, the concept of full virtualization and the para-virtualization means have been built. Now, come to the part that we have another type of virtualization as well, that is hardware virtualization. This I'll discuss, my dear friends, after some time. Then after letting you know the infrastructure as a service. This is why, because this is interlinked with some concept. Okay. So for this purpose, that I'm stopping the criteria of this particular virtualization here itself. So hypervisor of two types. That is hypervisor design type 1 and type 2, and we had seen the possibilities of type 1 and type 2, where The hardware mechanisms are quite fine, and in the type 1, that the hardware is completely working on the host operating system, and as a second layer the hypervisor is installed here. As a second layer the hypervisor is installed and guest operating system. So in type 2 the hardware is completely arranged as a top or bottom layer, and upper to this particular hyper layer part, then host operating system is installed, then followed by hypervisor and other guest operating system. Now, if you come to the part of full virtualization, as usual, that we install the hypervisor as virtual machine monitor, where the guest operating system is not unmodified here, but in the case of para virtualization, the guest operating system can be modified in order to make the applications quite faster and to replace the non-virtualizable instructions with hypercalls, means to that communicate directly with the virtualization layer hypervisor. So this is the concept. Okay, so I will come back then. How the things are managing that, I'm simply saying that each and every time the operating system modalities can be changed, and in full virtualization the operating system modalities can be changed. And if I say like that, some of the operating system guest operating system is involving with its required or related load balancing issues at the time of executing different applications, then how the things can be managed. So again, the cloud computing brings the concept called load balancing. The concept called load balancing. So this load balancing concept I'll discuss after the data center and networking architecture, so that you can understand the same. Right? Yeah. So this is infrastructure as service like data centers and network architecture. So I'll let you know the concept here simply so that you can understand. Right? As usual, it works as a layer-wise component. It works as a layer-wise component. So let me divide that. I require only 3 layers here. Right. So the first layer is the bottom layer that we consider, and we different types of entities are involving here. So this is the boundary between 2 layers. Now again, the upper layer is also broadly categorized into 2. Okay, fine. Yeah. So if I consider the concept of this one, this is a single layer 2 domain concept. Yeah. So as a top way, what we do that in order to manage the applications that we need to consider the concept of load balancers and the combination of switches. Okay. So here one type of load balancer is existing, which is interlinked with the switches. I'll let you know the meaning. Right. And again another switch and load balancer like this. We have other switches as well. So here switch, and switch like this. And each and every switch is interlinked with like yeah, let me come back. Give yeah. So let me draw here itself. So this is one switch, another switch. Okay, this is again another switch, combination of switches, and this is the another switch. So the combination of switches and load balancers. Now, what we have that we need to have the access. So as a these are the racks of servers. Racks of servers. Racks of servers. Like lot made like this. Racks of servers. Lot made. Racks of servers. So how the concept is being streamlined here. So from each and every switch that we have the combinations like that. Each and every switch is managed by the combinations of the rack servers like this. And here we consider, let me draw one more like this. So these are the switch components, and this is rack of servers. Rack of servers. This is the one, right? And these are the switches, right? And this is the load balancer. Load balancer. Again, that switches are having only communication among them, only switches like this. Like this. Now, the load balancers are interlinked with the main switches individually, like this. And these two switches can have the links like this. So this is bottom layer. Now, that each and every individual switch which is interlinked with the load balancer is further establishes the connection with some routers, and these routers are called as access routers. Access routers. Access routers. So for the purpose that I'm taking access routers, that is AR, again AR, some others like AR and AR, access routers. Right? As I told you, there may be an establishment of connections among. So the switches establishes the connection with the access routers like this. Okay, so this may be interlinked with it. I'm not showing the link. Now the access routers are managed by border routers. This is the border. BR. Border routers. Border routers, right? So each and every access router like this. Right? So this is data center layer. So this is the architecture of data center layer. The data center consists this kind of architecture. This we call as data center layer. Okay. Now, finally, these all are managed by the WWW, that is called internet. Internet. So this is the top protocol like this. So this is the networking architecture of infrastructure as a service. Networking architecture of infrastructure as a service. See, the core of a cloud is this server clusters, my dear friend. I'm repeating here, the core of a clusters is the server cluster. That is called, we call the server cluster as virtual machine cluster. Server cluster as virtual machine cluster. The scheduling of user jobs requires that you to assign, means we to assign a work to virtual clusters, okay, created for users. Created for users. So the gateway nodes provide here, these are the gateway nodes. Each and every one is a gateway node that accessed by each and every layer. Right, so the gateway nodes provide the access points of the service from the outside world. So the nodes can also used for security control of the entire cloud platform. So the data center server clusters are typically built with a large number of services ranging from thousands to millions of server nodes. Okay, say for example, Microsoft has a data center in the Chicago area which has 108 core servers. Okay, servers means bounded in 50 containers. like this. So 1 lakh 8 core servers like this. So data center networks are completely here. The data center networks are completely internet protocol based, right? IP, the internet protocols based, such as I told you that the bandwidth could be established up to the range of 10 Gbps. 10 Gbps. This is the one methodology. 10 Gbps Ethernet network. So if you consider the supercomputer network, right? This is the supercomputer network is custom design, and bandwidth network has means factories or something, some different types of methodologies we follow in order to manage the architecture of this particular networking architecture. So finally, what the infrastructure as a service allows here. So infrastructure as a service allows the users to use virtualized IT resources, okay, for computing, storage, and networking. So in short, the service is performed by rented cloud infrastructure. Rented cloud infrastructure. So the user does not manage or control the underlying cloud infrastructure, but has control over operating system storage, okay, deployed applications, and possibly select networking components. So this model encompasses storage as a service up to some extent, compute instance as a service up to some extent, and communication as a service. Right? How this is made possible in the sense, this is made possible based on the virtual private cloud, that VPC of say best example I can put, that is Amazon EC2 clusters and S3 storage for multiple users. So how this is supported? This is completely supported based on the concept called virtualization. So that's why that we need to discuss the concept of virtualization in a more suitable fashion. Okay, so that we have already started the journey of virtualization. That I'll come back with the actual strategy of virtualization. In what way the virtualization strategy made the cloud computing environment to perform and run such kind of applications, I'll let you know. But some part is left here, that is load balancer. Load balancers. We'll discuss about the concept of load balancing. Then after that, we'll come back to the actual concept of cloud virtualization. Right? So I'll discuss the concept of load balancing here. Okay, so this is must. This is must. Yeah. As I told you, like one of the important features of cloud computing is scalability. So what it matters? How it matters? Say at this moment that I'm going to run 4 terabyte of data so that the same can be compiled within say 15 seconds. So then only we can say that yes, my application is scalable. If it is taking more than 1 hour or 2 hours, then doesn't matter. That we don't consider that the particular application is a scalable application. Okay. Right. So cloud computing resources can be scaled up on demand to meet the performance requirements of applications. So load balancing distributes workloads, right? Load balancing distributes workloads across multiple servers to meet the application standards or requirements. So the goals of load balancing techniques are to achieve maximum utilization of resources. The goal is the utilization must be happen in a maximum manner. Maximum utilization of resources. Utilization of resources. This one. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, not only the maximum utilization of resources, minimizing the response time and minimizing the throughput as well. So the load balancing distributes incoming user requests across multiple resources. With load balancing, cloud-based applications can achieve high availability and reliability. So finally, the load balancing strategy made to achieve the high availability, right? High availability and reliability. Right? These are the 3 important points. Yeah, since say multiple resources under a load balancer are used to serve the user request, say in the event of a failure of one or more of the resources. So the load balancer can automatically reroute the user traffic to the healthy resources. So to the end user accessing a cloud-based application, a load balancer makes the pool of servers under the load balancer appear as a single server with high computing capacity. Okay, so the routing of user requests determined based on a load balancing algorithm. So here, this load balancing may be consisting a different algorithm, and this here this may be consisting a different algorithm. This may be consisting different algorithm, so that we can deploy different types of load balancing algorithms as well. So what are the commonly used load balancing algorithms? So the commonly used load balancing algorithms include these are the terminologies known to the C and to some extent mathematics people as well. So let me repeat. So the first algorithm, load balancing algorithm, can be considered as the round robin algorithm. Round robin algorithm. So this is one. So as usual in round robin load balancing, say the servers are selected one by one to serve the incoming requests in a non-hierarchical circular fashion with no priority assigned to a specific server. So this is the algorithm one. Or we can consider another algorithm as well. That is, say this is the modification of round robin.
Sir, can you repeat round robin?
This is, yes, please.
Can you repeat the round robin?
Round robin. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir. Can you say it again?
Yeah, round robin. Yeah. So in round robin load balancing, the servers are selected. Servers are selected one by one. Okay. Servers are selected one by one to serve the incoming requests, right? That is application request in a non-hierarchical fashion. Okay, in a non-hierarchical fashion means there is no link. Hierarchical, non-hierarchical circular fashion with no priority. Okay, with no priority assigned to a specific server. That is the meaning. So now, since the concept of round robin is following the non-hierarchical circular fashion with no priority, a kind of modification has been done in round robin on the with the name of weighted round robin. Second one, weighted round robin, RR. So in this particular weighted round robin load balancing algorithm, servers are assigned some weights. Okay, the incoming requests are proportionally routed using a static or dynamic ratio of respective weights. Let me repeat. In the weighted round robin load balancing strategy, servers are assigned some weights. Okay, like high computing end server. Okay, and middle level computing server with limited number of resources like this. Okay, so the incoming requests are proportionally routed using a static or dynamic ratio of respective weights. So for example, say this particular server 1 is completely having some limited resources. Server 2 is having somewhat extra as compared to S2. S2 is having somewhat extra as compared to S3 is having somewhat extra as compared to S2, and again S4 is having somewhat extra as compared to S3, like this. So by using the concept, say example that I want to accommodate say 2 GB data, so where server 1 can be preferred. Say I want to accommodate more, say for example 6 GB, so this server can be preferred. So like this. So in a dynamic manner, the servers can be chosen. So based on the weights given, the weighted round robin load balancing algorithm can be considered, right? So this is the second type of load balancing algorithm. Now third one is low latency load balancing algorithm. Low latency load balancing algorithm. In low latency load balancing, the load balancer monitors the latency of each server. each incoming request is routed to the server which has the lowest latency. Simple. The name itself depicts like that the incoming request can be routed to the server which has the lowest latency. That's it. Okay, simple meaning it is. Now come to the fourth type of load balancing algorithm, that is called least connections load balancing algorithm. Least connections. Least connections load balancing algorithm. So in least connection load balancing algorithm, the incoming requests are routed to the server with the least number of connections. Say example, say this I am arranging in a round robin or something circle fashion, say where say my concept should be like this, S1 to S2 followed by S3 followed by S4 like this, but not say S1, S2, S3, S4. Say I wrote like this, where S1 is having the link with all, S2 is having, S2 has established the connection with S1 and S3 only, but here S4 only establishes the connection with S3 like this. S2. So in this way, so this kind of concept, least connection concept can be considered for managing the load balancing strategy. Now come to the part of the type of round robin that is called priority load balancing algorithm. Priority load balancing algorithm. So in priority load balancing, each server is assigned a priority. Say the incoming traffic is routed to the highest priority server as long as the server is available. Okay, means when the highest priority server fails, the incoming traffic is routed to the server with a lower priority. Like this. As I told you, among these four, the S4 is having is given the priority in all the way. Like why? Because it has good computational resources, extra memory, right, and a good number of VM virtual machines installed. Like so, this is given higher priority, highest priority. Like this, then this kind of server is found. Then ultimately, such kind of server can be considered for performing the execution for specific application. So this is the one. Now come to the another load balancing type of load balancing algorithm, that is called overflow. Overflow load balancing algorithm. Yeah. So what it tells like, the overflow load balancing is similar to priority load balancing, right? When the incoming request to the highest priority servers overflow, say that it can manage the 10 GB operations, 10 GB type of 10 GB data operations at a time. Say 11 GB operations need to be performed at this moment, but among these that we cannot split, so that's why that we'll consider the common one, but we require 1 GB extra here. So this is overflow. So like this, when the incoming request to the highest priority servers overflow, the requests are routed to a lower priority server. Why? Because see, so this one can manage the 1 GB execution at a time. So this can be split, and finally these two can be run parallelly, and this the output of this will become the input to this, and finally these two be combined in a parallel fashion, and the output will be applications output will be declared within the time. Right. So we have different types of load balancing algorithms, my dear friends, like round robin, right? As I've discussed, weighted round robin, low latency load balancing, least connections load balancing, priority load balancing, overload load balancing algorithms, and others. Then apart from this, we have other algorithms as well. Then let me name here for the sake. Then like another algorithm I could remember, like that is, yeah, sticky sessions, STICKY, sticky sessions strategy. This is the load balancing strategy. Yeah, sticky sessions strategy one. See, in this approach, all the requests belonging to a user session are routed to the same server. Okay, these sessions are called sticky sessions. Why? Because these sessions are all the applications, jobs submitted are from one common user. Okay, so the benefit of this approach is that it makes session management simple. However, say a drawback of this particular approach is that if a server fails, all the sessions belonging to that server are lost, since there is no automatic failover possible. Sticky sessions, right? This is the one type of load balancing strategy. We have another one like say session database, SESSION, session database load balancing strategy. So in this approach, all the session information is stored externally in a separate session database, okay, which is often replicated to avoid a single point of failure. So the drawback of sticky session is recovered here. So though this approach involves additional overhead of storing the session information, however, unlike the sticky session approach, this approach allows automatic failovers. Fine. So this part is also recovered from sticky sessions. 2. That is arranging the single, means managing the single point of failure, and again it allows automatic failover as well. So the server which got failed, which got down, can resume with its proper sessional information. Like I could mention a lot many, but fine. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are enough of some extent. So this is about the load balancing strategy approaches that we need to consider in all situations. Okay. So what extra things that we can, for what reasons that we supposed to study all this, like load balancing strategies. The load balancing strategies we are studying only for the reason of scalability. Only for the reason of scalability, right? And even you can deploy your own algorithm strategies that in order to perform the task related operations, we have task scheduling algorithms. So the task scheduling algorithms comes under load balancing. So we'll discuss different types of task scheduling algorithm with suitable prerequisites in upcoming lecture. Yeah. So when we consider the concept of scalability, especially, right? Say if you consider the multi-tier applications such as e-commerce, but e-commerce application is a multi-tier application one, like social networking, business to business, etc., can experience rapid changes in their traffic. Okay, so each website has a different traffic pattern, which is determined by a number of factors that are generally hard to predict beforehand. So here, the modern web applications have multiple tiers of development with varying number of servers in each other. So that's why the scalability is mentioned. See, you just assume the development history of, means you just have the development history of Amazon. So Amazon was an e-commerce enterprise. Now it is leading the industry up to some extent. It is leading the world to some extent, right? Because of what? The web application development means in the form of software as a service made, means enhanced the situation of this particular industry in a quite easy manner, right? It's because of scalability, right? So how the scalability issues can be managed in the sense like I cannot say that if you establish the big server, if you establish means unlimited infrastructure, unlimited platform services, unlimited softwares. No, these may create mesh event. This may create mesh events. So I can give you best example that so I want to reach from Dhanbad to Kolkata. I have plenty of ways. I have good number of ways to reach Kolkata, but I want to choose the safe one, okay, straightforward one, and which consumes less time, right, and which provides means a suitable way that without any problem like this. So this we treat, this component we treat as like a scalability. So a scalability component. So capacity planning is an important task for each such applications. Capacity planning. So what is the limitation of the application? That we need to think about first. Okay. So capacity planning involves determining the right sizing of each tier of the development and deployment of an application. So in terms of the number of resources and the capacity of each resource. Right. So what do you mean by capacity? Then I cannot say if I establish unlimited infrastructure, my problems will be solved. No, it's a wrong prediction. Right. Let me tell you the concept here. So traditional approaches for capacity planning are based on the predicted demands for applications and say account for worst case peak load of applications. So when the workloads of applications increase, the traditional approaches have been either to scale up or scale down or scale out. Okay, so scaling up involves upgrading the hardware resources. Can we do the upgrading of hardware resources instantly? It is not possible. In order to make the upgradation of hardware, again we need to change the modality of the software. So this works, no? So scaling out involves addition of more resources at the same time. So traditional scaling up and scaling out approaches are really based on demand, forecast, and regular intervals of time. So in this way, the concept works. So analyzing the real traffic history made for top websites that which can manage the peak workloads significantly lower than others. So traditionally, capacity planning approaches which are designed to meet the peak loads result in excess capacity and underutilization of resources. So if the underutilization of resources concept is considered here, then then definitely there is no chance of getting the scalability mechanism in a perfect manner. So this is the problem. So what we do? So that's why perfect planning is required. Means what's that? Capacity planning is required. Then only that we can assure the scalability for the end users that we are participating, or the users are opting our services. So in this way, the scalability mechanism is considered as a treated as a dependent attribute on the load balancing instances. Again, the load balancing is completely depending upon the virtualization. Virtualization is completely depending upon the infrastructure managed, arranged and managed. So in this way, we try to establish the connection of data centers, and the resource management can be utilized for efficient usage of applications for execution. So this is the way. Okay. So in tomorrow's class, I'll discuss the concept of virtualization with specific description and the specific description and the related terminologies, so that you can understand the same. Yeah, I have already mentioned the books. No, that is books I have already mentioned. That I have one book, I believe. That is yeah, the name of the book. Yeah, this one. So this is Distributed and Cloud Computing by H. Wang. This book is available in the form of ebook. You can take, you can even download. Okay, it will solve the problems up to some extent, except the theory concept you can get from anything. But because different types of e-materials are available on cloud computing, that you can go through, no issue. But this book gives you complete knowledge about up to some extent, except the platform as a service. So I'll discuss the platform as a service, okay, after some time. Okay, guys, so for this time, fine, then we'll meet in tomorrow's class. Okay, then bye-bye. And this is my sincere advice to the BTech students. The BTech students are not attending the classes. This is the 5th class, so I'll take serious action. Okay, then fine. Bye-bye.
Sir, yeah. What is the name of book which you just said?
Distributed and Cloud Computing by Wang, K.H. Wang. Okay.
Sir, can you show the previous slide, please?
Load balancing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, fine. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.